In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a serial killer known as the Zodiac Killer terrorized Northern California. There were at least 5 victims, but later on, the murderer would claim he killed at least 37 people in total. Survivors and witnesses of the Zodiac attacks described him as he was approximately 5 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 10 inches in height. Medium or slightly stocky build, curly brown or light reddish-brown hair worn in a crew cut, wearing horn-rimmed eyeglasses, and usually wore dark clothing, usually wool trousers and a dark navy blue or black windbreaker jacket, with distinctive military jump boots known as wing walkers. One survivor describes the Zodiac as having an odd gait. That is, he had a peculiar, lumbering, or heavy walk. Boot prints found at the Hartnell Shepherd crime scene were size 10.5. Survivor Brian Hartnell describes the Zodiac's voice as slow and measured and having a unique sound and cadence with a monotone. The first known confirmed Zodiac murders took place on December 20, 1968, on Lake Herman Road in California. The victims were David Arthur Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, both of which were shot with a .22 handgun. The Zodiac then remained inactive until July 4th the following year, when he shot another couple, Michael Mageau, 19, and Darlene Farron, 22, while they were seated in a parked car in the parking lot of the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Mageau survived, though he suffered severe injuries, and was able to provide a description. On August 1st, the Vallejo Times-Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle received near-identical letters from the Zodiac in which he took credit for the murders, proving his guilt by stating several facts about the crime scenes, such as what the victims were wearing, how their bodies were positioned, and what brand of ammunition he used. The only signature was the Zodiac's symbol. The letters also contained one part of a 3-part cipher designed by the Zodiac, who ordered all 3 papers to publish the ciphers on their front pages and threatened to go on a killing spree over the weekend if they didn't comply. All 3 papers published the cipher, which was cracked after a little more than a week by teachers Donald and Betty Hardin. In the decoded message, the Zodiac claimed to have been killing in order to collect slaves for his afterlife. The next Zodiac letter came the day before the cipher was cracked. In it, the Zodiac named himself for the first time and gave more details about the murders. The next murder took place near Lake Berryessa on September 27th. This time, the victims, Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepherd, 22, were tied up and stabbed instead of shot. Hartnell survived his injuries, but Shepherd died 2 days later. During his next killing, the Zodiac diverged from his pattern even further and shot and killed a cab driver, Paul Lee Stein, 29, in Presidio Heights in San Francisco on October 11th after riding with him. This time, a partial fingerprint in blood was found inside the car, along with a pair of gloves, which were, however, considered to be too small to fit the man described by the witnesses. They were later linked to a female passenger of Stein. At first, the police were led to believe that the killer was black, which was later corrected. Before that, however, a pair of uniformed cops on their way to the crime scene spotted a man fitting the Zodiac's description dressed in a dark jacket and walking away from the crime scene mere minutes after the shooting. 3 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter in which the Zodiac threatened to kill all the passengers of a school bus and included a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. Though this was the last of the Zodiac's confirmed killings, he continued writing letters and claimed responsibility for several murders during this time. It is generally believed that he lied for attention. One theory suggested in the Monster, the Zodiac Killer podcast is that other contemporary events got a lot of media attention, such as the Manson family murders and the Vietnam War, and the Zodiac kept writing letters in an effort to stay in the public consciousness. The prime suspect in the case, at least in the eyes of the public, was and remains Arthur Lee Allen. The authorities began investigating him after they were told by one of his former friends, Donald Cheney, that Allen had told him about an idea he had for a novel about a serial killer who called himself Zodiac, and did several things the Zodiac Killer did or threatened to do, such as taping a flashlight to his gun and killing the passengers of a school bus. In hindsight, Cheney's story has been viewed with a lot of skepticism. In part, because Allen was accused of molesting one of Cheney's sons, but also because his account of when Allen supposedly told him has shifted over the years and sometimes added details not present in the first telling. For example, after the abduction of Kathleen Johns, Cheney also started saying that Allen had talked about tricking women into thinking their tires were coming off and using that as an excuse to loosen them, like what happened to Johns. Also worth noting is that Cheney and Allen's situation isn't unique, and there were other people at the time who made similar claims about people they knew. Allen was, however, a skin diver who had been to Lake Berryessa on several occasions. He also admitted to having had bloody knives in his car on the weekend of the stabbing, but claimed that the blood came from a chicken he had killed for dinner. After a warrant for his trailer and handwriting was secured and carried out, his fingerprints were compared to the part from the cab, his guns compared to the Zodiac evidence, and his handwriting to that of the letters. None of the tests came back a match, and Allen was let go. In 1991, Majo was tracked down and shown a lineup of old photos of Zodiac suspects. After he fingered Allen as the killer, there were talks about formally charging him with the murders based on circumstantial evidence against him, which were in turn heavily contested by others. Allen died of natural causes before any trial could take place. To this day, the case remains unsolved and the Zodiac Killer's identity is still unknown.